welcome to Back Chat. Don't know what episode we're on.
I don't even think we count them.
No, I don't think we
don't count them,
do we?
No, anyway, but this episode, we got mummAy in, the Wolf of Wall Street.
Up,
you described him, Josh, as Leonardo DiCaprio.
Oh, yeah, yeah. Well, actually, he's Adam Driver if Adam Driver played the Wolf of Wall Street.
Yeah.
That I think is the most accurate description of mummAy.
But yeah, we got mummAy on for this episode of Back Chat. And yeah, thanks for joining us, man. I appreciate you taking time out of your schedule. We know that this is early for all of us, apparently. Looking at you, Josh, again.
What?
Keep drinking that Red Bull.
Yeah, keep sipping away at it.
That Red Bull.
But yeah, I actually wanted to start off. The first topic we've got, the first question we've got is talking about your history of then and now. But I want to start. It's related to it, so I'm not going to go completely off the
Don't worry.
the road that we laid.
You're the host. Go anywhere you like.
Sure, but I would ask about your name actually, like where the concept of your name mummAy came from.
This is an elaborate story, but when I was young, because I played games since I was like 4 or 5, I liked the mummAy movies.
Oh.
So I was like, wow, first I was Little Anthony. That was my initial name. When I was playing Half-Life.
Really good alias.
When I was playing Half-Life and I was like roaming around, kind of just like fragging in my youth shoes still, I was Little Anthony. And then I watched the mummAy movies and I was like, I like this mummAy character. So I was like, fuck it, let me just name myself mummAy. And then in CSGO, I changed my name to mummAy with the A. Because one of my friends, when I played TF2 with them, they had an AY in their name. And I was just like, let me just add an AY. And yeah, my A is still silent, so it's still pronounced mummAy, and the A is just there for looks.
Oh, wow, there you go.
Because that's well, you touched on what we were going to get into. 'Cause there's a common thread that binds us all 4 of us, and 5 of us, our producer as well, is that we all at one point were from competitive TF2. Because I remember playing against you actually way back in the day in Open when you and Tiger were just terrorizing poor Open players.
Right. We played those Open games with a couple of friends that we played with when we were in like Roughneck, like TF2 Roughneck. I don't know if you heard about Roughneck. It was like an 8v8 league, but we would just play for fun. But like towards like season 3 or whatever, when we played Invite, that's when like we were playing serious. We were playing like CEVO Professional, and we played as Frag Dominant. We got sponsored by Frag Dominant at the time, so we were first Adrenaline Gamer, then we went to Frag Dominant, and then we were Virgin Police. So
yeah.
How old were you when you were playing in a team called the Virgin Police?
I was 12 and I was policing.
Oh god.
Yeah, it was.
That's
looking back
funny.
at the name, I don't know how well it would have fit my 12-year-old persona, but yeah, it works.
That's so funny, man.
Yeah, because one of the times we were watching the tournament, we were doing the companion stream, and one of the guys we knew from TF2, they were like, that mummAy from TF2, like I think it was Marmaduke Grills. I don't know if you remember.
Yeah, I know Marmaduke. Yeah. He left our CS team. That guy. We were playing CS with him. We were playing a CS league for fun, and the guy just didn't show up. Marmaduke, come on, man.
Come on, bro. And well, anyway, yeah, he brought that up, and then we went back and looked. I'm like, holy shit! I remember playing against you in Open, and you were just nasty on Scout Sniper back in the day.
Hell yeah, dude.
Yeah, so we had to touch on the esport history.
So what?
I guess before we.
But you said that you were playing games since you were like 4 or 5. I know that I didn't start playing. I mean, maybe this is why you're so much better than me, because I didn't start playing FPS games until I was like 15. So I think that that 10-year advantage is definitely paying off for you now. How did you get into games when you were that young?
My brother, man. My brother and my dad, everyone was playing. And my brother's 7 years older than me, Tiger. So when he was playing, I was just watching. I didn't really have much else to do. I was just kind of just playing with my action figures, watching him play. And I was like, I like this stuff. The first game I really got hooked into was Half-Life and Diablo 2. I think Half-Life came out in, 96?
Like a while,
I want to say
96.
I think it was
maybe even
96
98 or something.
Yeah, and I think I forget when D2 came out or Diablo 1. But we played Diablo 1, Diablo 2, and then when I was old enough to actually buy a computer and played Diablo 2, it was when I kind of went into my own way of learning. But I was like 6, 7, 5 to 7 was my range of like getting my computer and actually playing.
That is crazy.
That's where my aim became what it is today. But yeah.
Were you better when you were a kid? Sometimes I feel like when I play against 14-year-olds, it's peak aiming.
Peak. Dude, demonics. People, when I was younger, because I came from Half-Life, Adrenaline Gamer. So Half-Life, if you've ever seen any videos, it's fast-paced. Like you're playing high sense, you're fast-paced, flicking, and I was playing against all these Europeans that were like embedded into the game from when they were younger, but not as young as me. But I had to compete, and my way to compete was to get in their face and just outflick them. So like there's still YouTube videos of me playing, and if you look at the pace of the game, it's just like it's incredible. It's nothing like Valorant or Counter-Strike, and I think that's what separates me from a lot of people is that I don't need this slow-paced like correct style of play. Like I'm used to chaos. Like I love to be in this like this environment where it's like shit is going down. Like I love those chaotic environments, and that's where I strive. It's like if shit's chaotic and I'm playing, like like look at this. This is fucking great.
Yeah. I have actually seen this game before. I don't know why, but I watched some games of it in the past. Because I think there was another player that I've interviewed at some point in esports that had come from this game as well. And the crossbow is just mental.
Deadly. Yeah, the crossbow, that's what I was known for. I had an insane quick bow. So like when you're using this crossbow gun, if you right click, you zoom in and you can left click and shoot, and it's pinpoint accurate. So like when you're in a fight, and if you ever like watch me play, I tower. So this is the Tau or the Gauss cannon, which is the most unique gun in any game because you can do a shit ton of damage with it and you can move around with it. So what I would do is I would Tau into people and I would bring out my crossbow and I would just quick bow flick them instantly and switch to my shotgun and just shotgun to finish them off. So people would say like, are you using a crossbow script? Or like, how are you so fast with the crossbow? Because it's pinpoint accurate, and if you're fast with it, you can get out so much DPS. Wow, what a great game.
I've never seen Half-Life gameplay, but it's like it's so reminiscent of that era of arena shooters, you know? High mobility. I think I was seeing you pick up or whatever that was in that video, picking up weapons and other stuff as well. It's
there's armor. There's a lot of strategy too. You know, you have to control the map.
Of course.
There's spawn timers, just like in Quake 3. You know, I played Quake 3 also, and you're timing red armor, you're timing mega health. It's the same concept in this game. You're trying to get ammo, you're trying to control the gauze, you're trying to control the expo if you're playing a certain map. And there's players that have strategies around the guns and around the map, and it's the same as in any game. It's just a faster pace, a much faster pace.
So how did we go from 12-year-old mummAy, who is making sure that he's policing the celibates, to the Wolf of Wall Street? Because that is a really unique story. The like piece that Valorant did on you, which if any of our viewers haven't seen, they were running like during the Masters tournament. They did pieces on some of the players. They did one on Shaz, they did one on Asuna, they did one on mummAy as well. And yours was a bit of a different tone to the others. It was almost like I don't even know. It felt like a bit of a movie. It felt like a movie piece on somebody.
Yeah, it was a great journey. I mean, when I was 12, and I always knew I was going to do something with computers. Like I love computers. I fixed them. I bought and built every computer that I've ever owned. I've never had anyone, like my parents, no one's ever bought my computer. I've always saved up money some way or another from like birthdays or Christmas or whatever, built my own computer, played my own games, did my own thing. So it was always a career path for me, whether it was being a systems engineer or a pro gamer. I always tried to do the pro gamer thing. So when I was pro in TF2, I was making like $500, you know, like nothing crazy because it wasn't as big back then. I was like, you know, let me try CS. So I played 1.6, I played 1.3, all the old school Counter-Strikes, but I never actually took them so serious because I was young. And Counter-Strike, when you're young, my brain wasn't there. Like I wasn't able to understand things to the extent I understand them now, but I was still able to compete with my aim. And I would always try to like go around in IRC, you know, East Beast Ringer, And like I would go in Ventrilo, and I would join. And I'd be like, "Hey, what's up, guys?" with my high voice because I was young. I would get insta kicked, and I would just I'm like, "Fuck, I can't find a ringer spot or a team." But eventually I stuck with it because I loved it. I enjoyed playing anything and any game I played. So my friend Term, he got me into the CS:GO beta. When that came out, and I forget how old I was. I think it was like the beginning of college. I can't remember exactly. But when CS:GO beta came out, my friend Term got in. He gave me the key. I played, and my AWP was nasty. I was just AWPing around. I was playing matchmaking, and I was like, you know what? Let me just play it. Let me see how it goes. And at the time, I was working at a ski shop locally. I was big into snowboarding. I was selling snowboards and stuff, and I was playing Counter-Strike. And I still had that competitive edge where I wanted to play something and see how well I could do with giving it my all. So I played Counter-Strike, and I hit up some people that I had networked with previously. And I'm like, hey, I'm older now, whatever. Didn't really get the light of day from them. So I just kind of said, fuck it, let me make my own name. And I posted like a looking for team ad on ESEA. And I joined an open team. I tried out for an open team, and we went on to go to IM, and then we went to main, hit a wall, and then I went to just like kind of pug around and see what was around. I joined another main team, which was Hooligans at the time, up there, and then I got a message from someone from a Premier team saying like, hey, would you want to try out for our team? And they threw me right into a match, and I did pretty well. And as I was playing with them, the team was Digital Logic at the time. The team kind of died. We didn't do too well. We were like 0-3 in Premier. And then the team Rush, which was with Little Man, Blade, and Slip, a whole bunch of old 1.6 players, they had hit me up saying like, hey, do you want to come op for us? Because we don't really have an opper, and they were 3-3 in Premier at the time. And I was like, yeah, like hell yeah, fuck it. Let me go in and play. So I played, and from there, I did well, and we made playoffs, and we made the ESEA Global LAN, which is in Poland. And then from there, I kind of was like in between trying to figure out if I should continue with CS or if I should get a job with my brother, because my brother was working on Wall Street already, and he was established. Right. And he was pretty much saying like I'd work out with him, I'd work out with one of his coworkers, and they needed someone who was like a help desk role. And help desk is always the entryway into an IT job, like or a computer job. So when I didn't do well in CS, I was like, let me take this job, let me see what's up with it. So I interned for 3 months, and I did really well, and they loved me. So I took a full-time job there, and from there I just was like, let me turn my back on CS, and I just worked, and I thought I was going to have a career path towards being like a CTO or something. Just working in that industry. And then Valorant came out, and the rest was history.
Why were you so intrigued by Valorant? Like, what drew you back? Was it just the state of the world at the time as well, of like things being a little chaotic and COVID locking people inside and that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I liked Valorant because of the freshness of the game. Like I was playing when I was working on Wall Street, and I was working like as a systems engineer. I was doing I was like playing things here and there, but it was nothing as serious. It was more like I was playing WoW Classic. I was raiding, and I was boring. Right.
Yeah.
Like I played WoW for so long, and I was like, let me just like I always want a game to play. I always want to do something. So that wasn't really the fix for me. So I needed something more. And when Valorant came out and I was watching it, I saw the CS players were playing it, and I saw like the freshness of it. And then I saw like the top players play it, but I saw them kind of lagging behind. Like I felt like I knew things more than they knew. Like I could learn something, or I could learn a meta or a strategy much quicker than they can. And I felt like with CS, since there were so many old school CS players, and since I was young, I didn't get like a great jump start on it. There were people that were ahead of me, and it would take me more time to equalize with them or to become better. But with Valorant, I could just use these set fundamentals that were in CS, apply them to this game, and then put my own twists on it because it's fresh and it's new. So it's like I'm better at adapting than the players that are already embedded in the ecosystem. Let me just throw myself in, adapt, put my own twist on it, and then just learn the fundamentals as I go. So that was kind of my mindset. And then I was like, COVID's happening. I'm not really going to I'm not gonna look for a job right now because things could get shut down, things could do this. Like there was so much stuff that was happening because I had gotten laid off just before COVID. Right. I was like, yeah, let me try Valorant. You know, I 3 months after I was like, I applied for unemployment and I had like a nice plan. I was like, let me collect my unemployment and then this is enough for me to actually play Valorant and give it like a year. And I took me 7 months. And it worked out.
Yeah, that's not bad. I mean, yeah, that's that's pretty perfect, isn't it? Those kind of timings tend to crop up for a lot of people, where it's just something aligns in their life where they can go for it for a certain amount of time, and then they see whether it pans out over that period of time. And
right,
it feels like if you have the opportunity to really dedicate a certain amount of time wholeheartedly to a game, it makes you much more able to go pro in it for sure.
Right. I was thinking about it too. Like I was always saying like, I'm not really feeling this job anymore. Let me I wish I could do something else right now. And then kind of everything happened at once. It was like my thoughts pushed everything upon me. So I was like, let me just do it.
Yeah. And then how did you link up with the Together We Are Terrific early on? Like when did that form? When I was playing, I was running 10-mans with a lot of the players on TSM right now, Cutler, Hayes, Sabrosa, and some of the players kind of that are streaming in that ecosystem. Everyone was running 10-mans, and no one really wanted to play unrated because there was no competitive at the time. So Akis and I had a plan to kind of just put together a roster, because he played with TSM for a few, and then they picked up some other players, so he wasn't able to play with them. So Akis and I put together like a plan, like, hey, let's talk to FNS, let's see how like what he's doing, because he was in close contact with them, and then FNS was like a package deal with Calypso, and we were like, let's put something together and join these tournaments and see how we do, just to play, get some experience. You know, it doesn't have to be set in stone. And we needed a fifth, and Caboose was on T1 Academy, so we were thinking about Caboose. So I was like, let me just get Dapper, because I know him and I know he was like thinking about switching, and then he finally had made the switch, so he was able to play with us because he didn't really have any options at that time. So he played with us, and we did pretty decent in like the first tournaments we played in, and then he got taken by Sentinels, and after that, Caboose was on T1 Academy and the contract was kind of a mess, so we were trying to inquire with him what he wanted to do, and he decided to come play with us. And from there, we just made that Team TWAT, and that's an old school 1.6, or it wasn't 1.6, it's like 1.6 in Condition 0 team that I was on.
Oh, really?
Yeah, with Term. It was like Term, and I forget who else was on the team. It was like a couple like old school names. But yeah, we made that team, and we tried grinding it out and see how it went until we got signed with Envy.
Yeah, it seemed like you guys were having a reasonable amount of success at the time. I can't exactly remember where you were in the rankings when you got picked up by Envy, but I think you were somewhere around like, I don't know, 10th, something like that.
Yeah, we were in the top 10 when we got picked up, because we were making the first strike tournaments. Like we were making the tournaments that were strictly 7 big names and then us. So we were making those, and that's when Envy was we piqued their interest at the time.
Right. Yeah. I remember thinking you were the best of the unsigned teams, but
yeah.
it does. I think a lot of people have forgotten that because Envy is a big name, and because you guys have been a top team, like in the conversation for tier 1 team for, I don't know, months now. People have been talking about Envy as if you guys are going to have the chance to win tournaments in many of the different tournaments that you've entered recently.
Yeah,
I think people forget that you were one of the unsigned teams that went on a big upwards trajectory. You weren't always the team that was like right there, like always representing Envy, always at the top, always invited to the tournaments. You guys actually had to, at the beginning, like get better and better and better, and make actually a lot of roster moves really as well as you went throughout your journey to get to that tier 1 status.
Right. Yeah, we had a long journey. Like a lot of these teams were kind of formed like recently, except for maybe like Sentinels. TSM was one of an early adopter as well. So there's only like a few teams, like maybe 3 teams that are around from the early adoption of beta days. And we ground it out. I've been together with FNS and Caboose for like 8 months now. I think it's been, which is close to the longest relationship with the teammate since the beginning of the beta days. So
yeah. Can you talk me through the changes that you had in the team to bring in crashes and food as well? Because I think that was like just before First Strike, wasn't it?
Yeah, it
my
was.
Timeline is a little off.
Well, it was just after. The reason it was, I guess, of note and kind of peculiar was that it was coming off the back of you guys having your best showing yet, which was towards the end of Ignition Series. Like you started showing even more promise at the FaZe Invitational, and then the next tournament in Pop Flash, you made the finals, and then the moves came after that. And also, I think we always rated Calypso really highly on the show. I know I did.
You did.
I know I definitely did. I always thought he was like mega underrated for how good he was at Omen on the time. I mean, I don't know if there's any light that can be shed on what happened there, but
it's honestly as simple as Food and Crashies are great players. They were obviously not a good fit for T1.
Yeah.
And just as 100 Thieves took Ethan because of the statement, we don't want anyone else to get him because he has a lot of experience. He could be a threat. Food and Crashies have that same mentality. Like for us, we didn't want anyone else to get them. So we had to make a decision, like as a team, can we invest into them for a longer journey that is a successful journey so that no one else will get them? You know, FNS has a great relationship with Food and Crashies since before this team. And I've known Food for a while as well. I wasn't as close with him as FNS is, but I know that they're great players, and we all know that they're great players. So it's kind of like, we don't want anyone else to get these players, so let's take these players. You know, we spoke with Envy about it, and we were able to make it work. So that was kind of the main reason for that switch before such a big tournament. And it's only been great for us. You know, like we've only improved since then, and they were a great addition at the time, and they're still a great addition now.
Yeah, I want to just dial back a little bit and talk about Pop Flash, the tournament itself too.
Sure.
Because that was the first time where it looked like you guys had gone on a serious run, like a run where it looked like you had the potential to make it deep in a tournament, make a finals, maybe even win the whole thing. That was the first time that we actually saw Envy, in my opinion, be like a tier 1 team. Whereas previously you guys had been able to get some decent results, but you didn't look like you were actually going to win a tournament up until Pop Flash. And you guys had some like an incredible back and forth series. Well, 2 back and forth series actually between Cloud9. One where you guys won like 10 rounds on attack, and then the next one you won like 10 rounds on defense, and it was all over the place on those Ascent games. I remember being extremely excited watching Envy at that tournament. What was that like from inside the team?
We felt great. I mean, that I don't remember like the specifics of it, but I remember Tens destroying us one round. He double aced us back to back. I think that was the tournament. He double aced us, but we felt great. Like that was the first tournament that we really felt great with. And I remember I was moving at the time, so I was playing at my mother's house on a dining room table, and my setup was terrible. I was pissed. I think I played Sage the second game. I can't remember exactly, but I think I played Sage or Sova. And we felt great. And the things, like a lot of the reason why we lost was just kind of like these little mistakes here and there. Like these like at that time, that roster, the problem with that roster right there was our post plants. We had really blotchy post plants. Like a lot of people were just doing things that were not necessarily okay in these rounds. Like there were just a lot of throws that were happening. So we wanted to kind of refine our gameplay from that tournament. Like we wanted to learn from what we did and make it better. And what we found out was that our retakes and our post plants were horrible. So we wanted to work on that, and we wanted to see how far that took us, because we knew we had a lot of firepower to frag out. You know, as you guys were saying, you rated Calypso very high, and he was a great player. He had sick aim, and I enjoyed playing with him. It's just that our post plants as a team, they weren't great, and for a team like C9, with their firepower and their experience, they were able to beat us because of those little mistakes we made. And even to this day, we still have some issues with our post plants and our retakes, but we're working on that.
I've got a little bit of an outside question before we circle back to the overall topic, but I want to, because you were saying, mummAy, that you know you've got a really storied history in terms of the teams you played on, the games you've played as well. What's it like being embedded in the North American Valorant scene right at the beginning of an esport where there's all this innovation going on? Like, what's that like for you? Do you feel like you said yourself, you know, you felt like you understood the fundamentals before other people, before the pro players that you were watching at the time early on. Do you feel like it's like a constant race to catch up, or is this kind of like this innovation? Are you rewatching your old games thinking like, oh my God, we were so bad, you know, like even from a couple of months ago?
I mean, I think that there's so much happening in this game, and like there's so much new shit you can do. Like, even in this last tournament, like I enjoy being in the inception of this game because of the innovation that you can do. Like for this, even in this last tournament that we played in, like I figured out a certain amount of like one ways I could throw. Like I figured out where I could throw certain smokes that are advantageous to us that people have never seen before. I figured out where to ult in certain ways that people have never seen before. Like I'm always, for me, like as a player, I like to throw in things that people have never seen before, and that's kind of something that I think a lot of players don't understand to that extent. Like, like in chess, even in chess, like if you're playing against like Grandmaster versus Grandmaster, they know moves, they know openings, they know all these moves deep into the game, and they're like, there's set moves that you have to do. But when you throw in a move that they've never seen before, it throws off the whole entire game. And like that's kind of where I want to shine. I want to be able to innovate in the moment and put people in weird positions. Like, why is he there? Or like, I want them to question what's correct, or question what is the reasoning behind this. And
you fit in phase.
Yeah, exactly. But FaZe is doing it in a different way, I'd say. Like FaZe is doing it in a way where it's more like, let's overwhelm, let's get in people's faces, let's defy the CS strategy or the CS style of play, which I applaud. Like I would never shit talk that. Like if they want to do that and people in CS want to say it's wrong, I think for them to say it's wrong, there has to be like a bigger discussion about what's right and wrong, because the game is so new. So since the game is so new, how do we know what right and wrong is? Like we can talk about what's right and wrong from like a strategic point of view and like a fundamental point of view, but then it's like, in the moment, is that right play gonna always work? Because back in CS, you know, when Stewie was walking through smokes and people were like, what is this guy doing? You know, and he's winning rounds because he's making insane plays because of it. It's because he's pushing the pace. He's creating his own thing. He's doing things that are unlike what people are expecting. And that's kind of what I would like to do in Valorant. I want to push the pace. I want to change what's right and wrong. I want to make my own right and wrong. I want people to think about it so that they're intimidated.
Well, something that you've been bringing up a lot is that you're a lot of the ways that you're talking now are framed around the idea that you are playing Omen, that you're smoking and
right.
teleporting and that kind of stuff. You're talking like an Omen player. You weren't always an Omen player. In fact,
of course,
during Pop Flash as well, like before you guys added Food and Crashies, you were pretty much just playing Jett. I think you had like some Sage games as well that thrown in there, but I remember Akers taking on the majority of that back in the time.
Yeah, he was mostly Sage.
And then when you added Food and Crashies, it created this. It looked from the outside like a dilemma in the team where you had a lot of good players, but even up until recently, it felt like Envy didn't quite have a good idea of where you all wanted to be playing, and there was very much like a cycling role that you actually ended up playing a lot of. It wasn't like you immediately became the full-time Omen for the team. You were playing Cypher on some maps that I saw. You were playing Sage on some maps. You were back to Jett on some of the maps as well, and you were rotating the Omen between, you, Food, and Caboose until you found a system that actually worked for you. And it wasn't like you guys figured that out quickly. It was a long process. Can you talk through some of what was involved in that and what the thought processes were between the different iterations?
Yeah, so when we first made this roster move, we always thought, like, how are these roles going to fit? So I spoke with FNS on Steam, and we were kind of exchanging ideas that he had spoke with Food and Crashes about, and we had like 3 plans. So we went through the 3 plans throughout our tournament, our tournaments, and then we have finally came to a conclusion of the plan until like recently. So picture how long that's been since the inception of the new roster. We've had a plan that has led us to where we are now, and the plan has only came to full fruition since like 2 months ago, last month, when I'm full-time Omen. So for me, when I'm playing Jett is like, since the op nerf, I should say, Jett's opping on T side isn't as consistent, I would say, as like, I don't know. For me, I think that Jett's value comes from how your team plays with her and how the other team answers to Jett being picked. So if I can get what I have to get done on CT side and change the type of risks I'm taking, then I don't need to play Jett, and we can get value from other agents, from Food playing Phoenix or Jake playing Duelist, or from Victor, because he's got the new name change now.
He does, yeah.
So from Victor playing Phoenix or dueling, and from Jake playing a Duelist as well, we can get value from them, and I could still give value with my op, and I could still play my smokes role and add, like, I'm pretty much trying to take a bullet as the opper and change my type of risks I'm taking. So as Jett, you're trying to get the entry, you're trying to open up rounds and stuff, but as Omen on CT side, I'm taking different types of risks, or I'm playing a different type of op role that maybe other people aren't expecting, because people are so accustomed to playing against a Jett opper, they might not expect the type of risks I'm taking on Omen, and they might not be able to develop a plan around it. But there's teams that do. There's teams that anti-op really well. Sentinels is a team that anti-ops really well, and they're actually a team that, since playing them a lot, I've come to realize that Jett's value on some maps isn't really there because of how well teams can play into that. And I've been nullified plenty of times. It's not a great feeling to play a Jett op and do completely nothing for your team and just not have value. But then it's like, you have to think about, am I playing the agent correctly, or are we playing strategically correct? So that's a lot that comes into our thought process when we're talking about comp. But for me to switch to Omen, I'm thinking, like, I can op on Omen, and Victor and Jake can duel, and that's kind of where their comfort level is. And I have no problem giving this roll up. I have no problem just being a support Omen and just having impact as this role. I have no problem doing that. And sure, there's times where I'm like, shit, I wish I was Jett. I wish I could just re-peek this and dash away, get this pick, get out.
Sure.
But it's like, we shine elsewhere. I don't want to have to rely on that, because when you're relying on that, it's kind of inconsistent. And that's what we've come to realize, that if I'm opping on Jett, and let's say I have an off day, or let's say I'm getting shut down, or people are like really studying my tendencies and I can't get anything done, then what do we have to fall back on? We don't have another star duelist to fall back on. We have Jake as Raze or Vic as Phoenix, but it's like, are they going to be able to get that impact? So we're trying to develop a game where we will have impact on our rifle duelist, and I will still be able to have impact on my Omen op, and that will give us consistency.
Right. It's like the idea being that you don't want to put all your eggs in one basket, and
exactly,
have, like, the enemy team only has to shut down the Jett opper, and then whereas this time they have to shut down the opper, but they also have to worry about the duelists who are playing very in a very aggressive way. Actually, when you guys play defense, you tend to have quite a static op, but very active duelists on the extremities. I mean, sometimes you're opping on the extremities as well, but yeah, what your team's style tends to revolve around quite a lot of defensive aggression and you kind of locking down one of the other lanes of the map, it seems, which I think makes a lot of sense for the current state of the op. Now, pre-nerf op, that might, I mean, these plans are all based around the current state of the weapon, right?
Yeah. I think I think the pre-nerf op was. I mean, the pre-nerf op would have changed a lot. Like if the op, because I wasn't playing Jett in the beginning of this game. Like I played Jett in pugs. I played Jett just like messing around because for me, like mobility is king. You know, from the games I came from, I love mobility. So it's like when I'm playing this game, before I was even talking to any pro players, I was kind of just dashing around playing Jett and clutching and having these sick maneuvers because no one's seen this shit before. So I was like, let me just play Jett. I enjoy it. And then people were like rating Jett really low in the value chart when we were establishing team comp.
Yeah.
But I'm like I always enjoyed Jett. So I was playing Sova. I was opping on Sova a lot, and I hated it. I absolutely hated it because I would have to throw my darts for the team. I would have to drone, and I would just like, all right, let me throw my dart. Let it scan, and then it's like I'm coming in super late. I'm baiting. I'm not really getting any impact. I can't really do much. So it didn't really work out. And then that's when I remember the exact day when Pujan was like, just, you're going to play Jett full time. I was like, all right, sounds good. And that's when I was playing Jett. I was open on Jett, and we would have great games and then we would have bad games. And like, that's kind of where, like, if you look back at our results and stuff, the consistency wasn't there because like, once again, it's really dependent on me. Like right here in this clip, if I was Jett, I lived there. But like
yeah,
like if I'm on, I'm on. But if I'm off, I don't know the impact I'm going to have. You know, so there has to be a trade-off. So that's kind of where we decided, let me go on something else and let's try like a hard rifling duelist, and let me try to op and see how well I do. And that's kind of where our comp is at the moment.
Yeah. Do you feel that the team now being established with this comp is in part what has led to Food now, Victor, finding so much success as of late? Because it seemed like since the challenger that you had won over Sentinels, he's just he looks like an evolved player. Like he always had a high mechanical skill, but something has clearly changed at this point where he's found a really high level of consistency that I don't think he's had up until this point. And now he looks like a legit top NA star player.
Yeah, I think having a team that supports him, for him to have freedom to let loose on his aggression is important. Like he knows where he wants to get like he knows where his value stands. You know, he wants to get impact here. He wants to win the round and do this. Like he's in it. Like he fully is acknowledging his role, and he might not have had that role on T1. Or he hasn't had that freedom on T1, but FNS and Victor have a really good, like a really good bond. You know, they have good chemistry together, and they both understand what each other needs to get done, and Vic understands what he needs to do for his team as the star player. Like now that it's set in stone, like you're the star player of the team, you're the duelist of the team. He is welcoming the role, and that's kind of where his confidence is growing to. He's evolved to like this extraordinary player with insane mechanical skill, and he's been dominating people, and our job on this team is to just be able to support that. And you know, we credit a lot of that to each player on this team being able to shine, which is really good. None of us feel like we need more than what we give. You know, like we're giving a lot, each player individually, and we're all ready to step up and become that star player in that round or whatever it may be. You know, we're all there to answer the call when we need to answer the call, and that's kind of where we shine as a team. That we're all 5 strong players ready to support Vic if we have to, or support Caboose, or FNS needs to be the star player in this situation, and we got to support him. You know, like we're all ready to change roles and figure out what each other needs to do. And I think that Vic being comfortable and not having to float around between smokes and duelist just gives him a lot more freedom and a lot more comfort to just relax and do your thing.
Yeah. And then within Challengers too, obviously the big story of that, not only did you win, obviously, but you won overcoming Sentinels, who in the past, historically, whenever you had matched up, they had always gotten the win. They had stopped you from winning tournaments previously, like Pop Flash, notably.
Yeah.
And you were finally able to beat them in this Challengers 2. So I suppose going into this event, going into that final against them and the previous match where you beat them 2-1 in the upper bracket, what was the approach this time? What was the difference from within the team, like that we didn't get to see in the server in terms of preparation or mentality that allowed you to finally overcome them?
I think for us as a team, as I was saying before, like a lot of teams like to play anti-op really well, and Sentinels was a team from the beginning that played anti-op really well, and they shut us down initially. Like when we were scrimming them or when we were playing them, we had such a horrible come up versus Sentinels. It felt like we couldn't get things going versus them ever with either roster. We first started playing them with the roster with Aegis and Calypso, and we got destroyed initially. The first skin we ever played them on was Haven, and they were just Odining us, and they were destroying us. And that gave like a really bad taste in our mouth. And then ever since then, we kind of just couldn't get the ball rolling versus them. They had such a hyper-aggressive individual playstyle that we just, like individually they were hyper-aggressive, and like they would all know how to like individually lock us down, and we just can never get the confidence versus them. So having the new roster and scrimming versus them, and actually we started beating them in scrims before this tournament, that gave us the confidence that we needed to say like, all right, like we got these guys. And we felt like a sense of their weakness, and we just exploited that, and that gave us the confidence to win these games. And when we played Haven versus them and we were up versus them with such a big lead, we had tremendous confidence. And that match right there was a breakthrough for us as a team to just understand that we can compete with them and just play our game. And that's what was important, because sometimes we have a hard time playing our game. We kind of get caught in the loop of like, what do we do? Or we're panicked, like we feel like very momentum heavy as a team, which from the outside perspective, which I could agree to a certain extent. We're definitely a momentum based team, but if we play our game and we stay confident and cool and collected, then we give a lot of people a run for their money. So beating them in that tournament, the Challengers 2, was definitely a wake up call for them. Like we could compete now. We're confident, and I think it was a great experience for us as a team to do that.
Is that part of the ongoing narrative within the scene, at least among the top pros, was that you guys were always an elite level team? I mean, not always, but stretching back since First Strike, people were talking about you guys being maybe the best team. Like, actually, people were talking and going on interview shows and saying, at the moment, the best team in NA is Envy. And then you guys kind of bombed out not bombed out, but you didn't achieve those expectations set for you by others in First Strike. And I think it set this narrative, especially when you looked at your performance in games and how much less you wanted to play an aggressive style, but you didn't seem confident enough to play that kind of stuff. It set up this narrative within the scene that there was a big difference between Envy in scrims and Envy in matches, stretching back since the First Strike days. And it seems like what you're saying, there was some kind of confidence play going on there where you couldn't quite get the same results going. Was that narrative kind of accurate, and was it solved?
We were scrimmers, man. We were destroying people in scrims. Like, our scrim record was ridiculous. We had we were like 116 or something. Like, we had an insane scrim record, and that kind of like that scrim record and everyone saying that we were like the best team put a lot of pressure on us to perform. And when we were in these matches, we were making these little mistakes that we had never made in scrims. So we were kind of like, why are we doing this? Like, why are we making these mistakes that are costing us these rounds, which are costing us the whole entire game, which are costing us the series? So it's like, what's happening? So I think a lot of it had to do with experience in matches as a full roster. Like, we were scrimming with this roster and we were destroying, as I was saying, And then this tournament was like one of our first big tournaments as this full roster. So we still had to work out how we all played in a match server together, which is, I know it's like a weird thing to say, but when you're in a match and a scrim, like you're practicing in your scrims and you're trying to practice your pathways in the round and your reactions in the round. And when you're in a match, you might react a lot differently. So it seems like for us, we weren't reacting as correctly as we were in scrims, and that cost us a lot of games. And in that TSM match, we were really disappointed in our performance because they weren't playing well, and we knew that we can destroy them. Like, we beat them in scrims a lot, and we were owning them. But when it came to the match time, we dropped the ball hard, and it was really disappointing for us as a team. But we knew that we can take away a lot from this, and that's where we were trying to figure out how to improve from there. And we spoke about it, and we've been trying to fix it till this day. How to figure out the correct way to success and consistency, which is hard to find in this game.
Do you think that comes from experience? It's literally playing in those high pressure scenarios a lot more, and over time it's something that you'll get better at, or is it something consciously that you're all working towards?
I mean, experience helps always. Experience will always help you in these high pressure situations. But the thing is, if we're scrimming and we're practicing these scenarios, what's different in the match? You know, like why do we suddenly feel pressured in a match? If we've been in the scenario in the scrims, 10 times, why are we just pressured on the 11th time because it's a match? Like it shouldn't be like that. It should be more so like, what could I do to outthink this person, or how can I be a step ahead? He's gonna expect me to do this. We've been in this situation together 10 times. The 11th time, maybe I'm gonna show him something completely different. Like, you got to be thinking confidently, and you got to be thinking how you could be a step ahead of the person you're playing against. So I feel like in a match server, you got to be on your toes. You shouldn't be as pressured. You should just be thinking, this is fun. Like, I have more things I could show, more things I could do that I can throw out to people. So that's how I think about it now.
Yeah. So with that TSM match, I was actually I wanted to ask about that match specifically, and I think you kind of got to the point maybe that I was going to see if you would get to anyhow, which is watching that match. Yeah, it looked like the least confident I had ever seen Envy play in that game specifically. Like on Ascent, Sabrosa was just walking into B main for free every round. He would just put down a boombot and he would just win B main control every round. And it was just so the antithesis of what your team has kind of always been, I guess, to an extent. Right. The defensive aggression that you were sort of getting at earlier.
We just got shut down.
Yeah. So like you would attribute a lot of this game to just succumbing to the pressure and getting in your own heads.
Yeah, I would say for me, when I was in that match, I felt like everyone was on edge. Like, I felt like we were all trying to get over this hump, and it like didn't work out. Like for us, like TSM, they're all friends, and for us, and we scrimmed them a lot, and we knew that they were like pretty solid on Ascent, but we knew we could beat them from scrims. So when we were in the match server, like round 2, I'm like, everyone seems really on edge, including myself, and it didn't feel right. It felt very off as a team, and it just attributed to a lot of mistakes that cost us a lot of rounds. And from the start of that game, we kind of just fell flat. We didn't really have answers. We weren't really calming up to the point where we were adapting. It was just kind of sitting stale. And that was a common problem for us in matches. We were just stale. We weren't really actively speaking about adaptation and actively speaking about where there's holes and staying active on reactions. It was kind of just stale, and that's where our losses came from a lot of the times in matches. In scrims, we were playing very reactionary. We were adapting and figuring things out. We were playing as if it was a match, and then when match time came, we didn't really play as if we were in a scrim where we were adapting and doing everything correct. We were kind of just sitting stale, trying to just hope things would fix themselves, and kind of just getting our confidence sucked away round by round.
What kind of things did you... Because we're talking a lot about what went wrong for you guys when you were in the matches at that point. and some of the issues you identified, which in itself is quite difficult because there's a lot of things that can go wrong between a scrim and a match. Some people get overconfident and make plays that they shouldn't do. Some people over-communicate and clutter everything up. Other people lock up and get nervous or edgy and don't calm as much. So figuring out all of those things is, or rather identifying the problem is a big thing in and of itself. But what specifically do you think changed for you coming into Challenges 2? Was it just purely a confidence thing based on... Well, what I'm trying to get at is you dominated scrims so much that you guys should have already been confident coming into matches. So what more could you do to actually fundamentally change your confidence levels coming into those games? Was it just a matter of talking about the situation and realizing what happened that helped you get to grips with it when it came to Challenges 2?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that we were in a lot of situations where our plans were more defined in scrims, and then in matches our plans were kind of like we had a plan, but the plan wasn't calmed well enough. So we were we were at a point in time where we weren't, like, our comms weren't up to par in the match server. So we realized that, and we realized that's, like, watching the games back, we realized that we needed to upgrade our comms for these situations so that we would have more of a plan. And in scrims, it was kind of, we were doing things that were more active, and rather than matches, we were sitting still, as I was saying before. So we kind of aligned our scrim gameplay with our match gameplay to find this equal ground where it's like we're in these situations in scrims. Now we're going to be in these situations in matches, so we'll react. But in scrims, we were probably taking more fights than we're used to taking in matches, or we were in certain scenarios that we would never be in a match. We just refined that in scrims so that we're more comfortable when the match comes, because other teams play differently in matches too sometimes. Most of the time. So we realized where our weakness was in the match, and then in scrims we just went back and played as if we were playing in the match server with comms, with peeking, and all of that. Because let's say in the scrim we would over peek, and someone would just get like 2 kills, you know. And then in a match, no one would ever peek that angle. So it's like, why are we playing that scenario if that scenario will never arise in a match? So that's kind of where our results were skewed in that sense.
That's very interesting as well, because I think probably FaZe, who have had a lot of success recently, would have approached that situation the opposite way around, where they're like, they're like, bro, we're playing like pussies in matches. Let's just do this shit in matches. Whereas it sounds like the opposite was true for you, where you decided to make your practice more refined. You tried to align your practice more with real, like, the actual decision making you would make in matches. Even though you were being really successful in scrims, by the sound of it, by pushing people and by taking more risks, you had like a riskier gameplay when it came to your scrims. But you went the opposite way, like refining the risk taking, even though it was being successful for you, to align the mentality with matches. That's just very interesting to me, because I think other teams would have gone, we're taking all of these risks and they're paying off for us in scrims. We should just play like we don't give a fuck in matches.
Right. I mean, we still play like that. It was more so like the risks we were taking were just completely, like, just out of the blue. Like we would be taking we would be like 4v3, 4v2, like taking stupid risks and losing rounds because of it, like throwing our lives away. Like we would be doing a lot of dumb shit, and it would kind of just, it would fuck our buy up later in the round. Like a lot of the rounds would just be kind of practicing the first 30 seconds, but then like the retake and the post plants would be just completely skewed. And that's that's why to this day, like, our retakes and our post plants aren't as perfected as they should be, but we have taken note of that so that we can improve on that. So for next time, our post plants and our retakes are going to be perfected so that we don't make these mistakes and we don't lose these little rounds like in that Gen.G match for on Haven. So that's kind of where that stands.
Yeah. I mean, I guess that can segue into, if we want to talk about then the Masters 2. Obviously, or Masters 1 rather, sorry. But going in as, quite the favorite, and you still made a good run. And still accrued points for the championship series. still a result that was not all for naught.
Yeah.
But I'm assuming you are disappointed that you went out in fourth and lost to Gen.G,
definitely.
what most people would consider an upset. Though Gen.G have definitely been trending upwards, and they were definitely a dark horse coming into this tournament, I think. But still, losing what was a pretty close series after already meeting them in the upper bracket final. What was sort of the approach going into this game then?
Yeah, we should have won this series. We've played Gen.G often enough to understand their tendencies and their weaknesses, and we were confident playing versus Gen.G. Like we're always beating them in scrims, and their new addition of their coach definitely helped them out a lot. So that's something that we took into account. But when we played them on Ascent, the first map, we felt confident. We gave them a really good showing, beat them out. And then when Haven came around, we made a lot of mistakes on post plants, and that cost us. I think we got the bomb down like 5 or 6 times in a row, and we lost every single post plant, which definitely lost us the series. So in our minds, we felt like we should have won Haven, and it should have been a 2-0. So now that it went to bind, we had a plan, and our plan got completely destroyed. We got anti-stratted, and we couldn't adjust in time. By that time, it was like 8-0, and they had a huge lead, and we're trying to scramble to get some rounds. And in this game with MR13, it makes it hard to really come back and mount the full return. So, I mean, we thought we should have won Haven and should have been a 2-0. So it was disappointing for us, but there's nothing more we can do other than kind of go back to the drawing board and figure out where we could have improved, where we could have adapted quicker so that couldn't have happened, or where we could have polished up our Haven so that we could just cleanly 2-0. It seems like we've always had a problem with this closing trend for us with these little things here and there. So our initial impact is good, but finishing out the game, sometimes we have trouble because we're trying too much or we're overthinking too much. So we just got to try to stick to our game and close out these series more cleanly.
Yeah. When God, well, that is ridiculous.
No chance he does that to me.
Yeah, I know. When I think we had Dapper on the co-stream at the same time as we were watching this Envy Gen.G game as it was happening live. And I believe one of the comments that he made was that whenever there's a rematch like this that happens within a tournament where neither team has had a long time to prep for the rematch, he almost always favors the loser the first time around when the rematch happens, because they sat down and they talked a lot about what went wrong in the game. Do you attribute that as the reason that Gen.G were able to come back on bind and like get out to such a ridiculous lead at the beginning of their game, because they had gone and kind of prepped for you even though they didn't know they were going to meet you again in the bracket?
I think the loser definitely has the advantage, and I think also that they have a coach is a big advantage. Not saying that we couldn't prepare enough for the game. It's just the coach is tasked with finding tendencies and anteing and figuring out how to break through our defense. Whereas as players, we're trying to figure out their tendencies within a strat and how we could answer back. So I think for us, losing Haven really fucked us because we were prepared for the first 2 maps pretty well. And then going into bind, we had our same strategy that we ran, and I'm pretty sure we had scrimmed them. Like they were like one of the last teams we scrimmed on bind, so they had a really good idea of what we did. So they probably took that into account and then used that against us. And we didn't really have a clear answer to why we were losing these rounds until it was too late, because once again, MR13, you don't have room for much adaptation. And then the pistol round is really impactful. So losing the pistol round definitely fucked us. And then losing the first gun round was horrible. And then they're already up 8-0. And I lost every single duel that I encountered on bind CT side also. So that was definitely horrible.
The discussion about coaching is interesting because I know that Envy have been experimenting with some different coaches recently, but your biggest success at Challengers 2 was without a coach, as far as I'm aware, anyway. So what's going on within the team in that kind of sense? Because it seems like you want one and you understand the advantages of other teams having one, and yet it's not really come together for Envy yet. Like, have you just not found the right person?
I would say we understand the value of a coach, and we, as players, would enjoy one. It's just finding the right person to mesh with FNS. You know, it's all up to the IGL. Right. And FNS, as the IGL, the guy's got an insane amount of experience. You know, we always joke that he has more experience in his pinky than anyone does. So, you know, the guys understands what he needs to get done. And if he doesn't mesh with the coach, then we can't have that. And if his ideas and with the coach, his ideas and the coach's ideas kind of don't work hand in hand, then it's not really going to work. So we've been trying to find a coach, and we've been like, having a coach takes a lot of workload off FNS's plate, you know, because he's in the practice server coordinating practices. He's in the server trying to figure out what to go off of. And another big thing too is having a coach that can see the whole entire map, as opposed to FNS. You know, he is a player in the server. He has a job as a player. He doesn't have the full job to call every single adaptation out. You know, we have to do that individually, and we're required to do that. Like, everyone should be calming their ideas about adapting and where the weaknesses are and all the holes. Just having a coach makes that much easier for us to focus on our game and play our game. So I think having a coach in this game is really important, because there's so much information in this game. There's so much stuff going around, and there's so many different abilities and agents happening. And being able to keep track of all that as a coach and relaying this information to your IGL or your team, I think that's a huge role. And you know, as you could tell from Bind, we couldn't adapt fast enough. We don't have, FNS doesn't have eyes on what's happening. You know, he doesn't see all the utility usage. You know, we're not all keeping track of everything to give him all that. So I think a coach would do us wonders. Right? Blasphemy. No, I mean, he does a great job. Like, he does a tremendous job of running practices and going over things, practicing things, scrimming, practicing what we want to work on, adapting in matches, calling. Like, he's doing a lot. And you know, I can't give the guy enough credit. So, you know,
it's about reducing that workload, and making it more manageable, right?
Right. Like, just giving someone all this information and offloading it to someone who can handle it and be able to just support us when we need it, so that FNS can focus on calling and focus on, you know, hitting his shots and doing what he needs to do, rather than thinking about different plans and ways to adapt and finding answers to everything. You know, that's not practical at this level of play.
Yeah, because I was going to say, I'm sure to an extent as well, you know, with just the way that the scheduling of the tournament works, going into the day where you're playing Gen.G, if you win that, you have to rematch phase immediately after. I'm assuming to some extent you're being forced to prep for both matches then as well, right? Like, I'm sure you had talked about what had gone wrong in the first phase game, and we're trying to prepare for that rematch too.
Yeah, I mean, it comes to the point where we don't even have to, like, where we can't even think about Gen.G. You know, we have to think about phase. You know, we're playing Gen.G, then we play phase right after. So we're all we have to watch all these VODs, and, you know, like, I do the same thing. Like, I'm taking notes on my desktop. You know, I'm writing down tendencies, what people do, default strategy, what I could do. And then, you know, match time comes, I have to make sure that I have all this information in my head, and then I have to be able to execute it. So it's a lot to handle. But then if we have a coach, it's kind of like, all right, this is where you guys faltered. Let's talk about that specifically, or let's make this specific adaptation. Like, their job is to figure out these specifics, whereas we're thinking in broad terms because we don't know exactly what to expect or what to do in these situations. So it's good to have a coach who would figure out all these X, Y, and Z factors, and then have a little strat book, and then just give it to us straight. So like that's definitely a huge factor for us, and for us as our team composition, for individually, like our personalities, I think that would help us out a lot.
I was going to ask as well, just playing in the tournament now, what is it like when you're holding a site and you're playing against the current phase, the new phase? Like, were you prepared? I'm assuming you were prepared for that matchup and that you understood how they would be approaching the game to an extent, but then actually having it happen is a completely different thing.
I think we've scrimmed them a bunch. We've warmed up with them a bunch. So we kind of know their playstyle. And when you're in the site, first of all, I want to be fucking Jett when I'm playing phase. Like if I'm playing against Baby Bay and this guy is dashing, updrafting, kniving me, fucking throwing smokes at me, and I'm sitting here teleporting around, I'm like, I don't want this. Like give me like I want to be like aggressive. You know, I want to out aggress this guy. Like he's playing Overwatch and he thinks he's aggressive. Have you seen me play Half-Life? Have you seen me play Quake? I'm fucking aggressive. You know? So it's like that sucks for me. So I have to make it work. And then when I'm just sitting backside and there's a round in Icebox where I'm just sitting backside on the rafters and I'm just like, fuck, I'm about to be overwhelmed. You know, like I have to think about what's open, like how I could use my utility to counter their aggression. What's open? Where do they want to come through? When do they want to exec? Like there's so much shit happening. And you don't know if they're full on execing. You don't know if they're probing. You don't know if they're trying to just full on overwhelm you. So for us, when we played them on Icebox, we didn't really have set protocols that were to counter them. We didn't have set protocols within our team to like withstand this aggression. Like it wasn't that FaZe played really well to that extent. It's just we didn't have an answer within our team at this point in time to actually counter this. We were kind of adapting as we went, and it just overwhelmed us. You know, we were prepared for their aggression. We knew that they were hitting A, but with us in this site, we weren't set. You know, we didn't have set things. Like this flash I'm throwing, it's not set. These things, my smokes are set, but a lot of times we're kind of just going as we please. And that was definitely a huge factor about why we lost this game and why Sentinels was able to beat them.
Yeah, it seems like as well that there was a bit of a, I think you described it as a triangle between the top teams as well. And I think you were saying with Gen.G specifically having a good matchup against Sentinels, but I think the same could be said about Envy having a decent matchup against Sentinels, about considering the amount that you played them recently.
Yeah.
You beat them at Challengers too. Okay, they're a slightly different team now as well, but I feel like that final would have been very interesting where Sentinels has a good read on FaZe. There does seem to be a bit of a clear stylistic rock, paper, scissors happening at the top level right now in North America. And I'm not 100% confident that like you guys would hard counter Sentinels or anything. But when you see how the finals go down between FaZe and Sentinels, I get the feeling that it would be a closer game as well between you guys and Sentinels had you made it into that final spot.
I think so too.
Is that what you feel like as well from being on the inside?
Yeah, I mean, I think I feel confident we would have beaten Sentinels in the finals, to be honest. You know, I think when you're playing FaZe, you're playing a different style of play. And I spoke about this on another podcast a while ago, that there's two different types of teams right now in the meta. It's like the pop team and the default team. And FaZe definitely was trying to showcase their pop style and their aggression, and they tried to fall back to their default, and Sentinels just picked them apart because that's their counter. You know, like they understand how to manipulate these teams that are trying to pop on you. They understand how to answer aggression with aggression, and if this doesn't work out for them, they know the next pathway they can take. They know where they can get picks, where people are going to be, and that comes from great prep and being a good player of the game, being able to read the game. So I think if we were able to manage FaZe much better, because that seems to give us a problem, that style of play, then we would be able to play our style of gameplay versus Sentinels, and that would be a better match, I think, than the FaZe Sentinels match. Even though the FaZe Sentinels match, like, it was a great match, but I mean, for me, like, I felt like the games were close, but you could see that there's a clear difference between both teams. You could see like the style between both teams and the skill level between both teams. When you're hitting shots, when you're not hitting shots, and when you have answers together as a team versus individually trying to make an answer. So I think our confidence versus Sentinels, we would have given them a better run for their money as opposed to FaZe, who kind of just dropped the ball in that grand finals. But kudos to them for their improvement and their style of play. I fuck with it.
Do you think that I suppose that's a what would you like to have in place for the next time that you fight FaZe to make it different the next time you meet them in a tournament?
I think just being able to understand the answers. It's not all about just Baby Bay dashing in and hitting 6 shots and everyone overwhelming us. We as a team need to know and be on the same page and figure out what we need to do to answer this. And I think Sentinels showcase a really great job about how to handle that play style. It's just fighting aggression with aggression. And I saw like Shazam just going for picks every single round on A, just shutting down the A site, being a nuisance to where it's not Sentinels worrying about Baby Bay, it's FaZe worrying about Shazam or Tens. Like that's kind of the next plan for us. Try to watch these games, see how Sentinels beat them, and then adopt that and be able to incorporate that in our game plan. And also for us, figure out Icebox a little bit more. We were lacking on Icebox going into that, so now we've found weakness. And playing against people that are better than you or playing against teams that are able to exploit your weakness showcases a lot for us as a team. We're able to adapt and figure out what we need to do better now. So it's good that we are able to play versus them and lose, so that for next time we will give them a better fight. We understand what we need to do so that we can beat them.
A lot of teams are playing at the moment with or without a Killjoy or a Cypher on some maps. FaZe do it on multiple maps. A lot of teams do it on Icebox. And also there's been a large discussion in the scene about Jett being almost like a must pick for the style that FaZe play and the style that you play to counter them as well. Like the countering the aggression with the aggression. It seems like a lot of the NA scene believes that you kind of need a Jett to be able to deal with the other team if they run a Jett in that kind of manner. Both of those things seem a little bit counter to Envy's natural tendencies. You guys don't have a duelist that regularly plays Jett. That would be your role, if anything, and you would have to have some role swaps in order to accommodate that. And also FNS pretty much just plays the Cypher or the Killjoy for you. He doesn't swap over to other things when you're playing Icebox, for example, or you don't have a huge breadth of different compositional archetypes that you go to. Is that something that you've had discussions within your team? Do you view that as an issue for you, or do you think there's other ways to adapt without having to just fall into the we've got to run Jett kind of playstyle?
It's a tough question because for me, I've always said that Jett versus Jett is needed. Like if you have a Jett on one team, you need a Jett on the other team, because that just gives like a different feel to the comp. Like when I used to scrim versus TSM in the beta days, or like the early release of this game, and Wardell would play Sova and I would play Sova, and we're both kind of AWPing on Sova, it'd be like a huge load off my shoulders. I don't have to worry so much about any type of Jett play because I'm an AWPer. My natural instinct is to worry about the enemy AWP. So when we would play and he would pick Jett and I would still be on Sova, I'd be like, fuck, man, I don't want to play Sova right now. Like I want to play Jett because I want that battle to happen. Like that's something for me as a player when I'm AWPing. I want to be able to counter the enemy Jett as playing Jett as the AWPer. But for a team like FaZe, I always think that Jett is the answer as well. I don't think Jett's the answer on Bind, actually. I don't think Jett has much value on Bind, which I could be wrong, but for me, I feel like she doesn't have much value that other agents can give. But we've had discussions between the team, like if I were to go Jett, what roles would swap. You know, we would have to we would run maybe like a triple duelist setup, put FNS on smokes, and we would have 2 role swaps. So like there's talks going on to kind of figure out what we can do to stay fresh and give a different look. I think that it would be nice if I can play Jett versus FaZe on Icebox and have a different look, because I want to play how Shazam played. I want to go for these aggressive picks and set the pace and make them afraid of us, not give them the site for free, not give them the choke points for free. And I think Jett does a great job with that. Just having that agent on your team like really gives the team a thought that this person can be anywhere. We can get picked and there's no risk to him going for these picks. So I think I think she's strong, but I also think that if you play a certain way, you can nullify a Jett pretty well. It has yet to be seen with FaZe for us. We have to figure out how to nullify Jett without Jett. But you know, the game's still new and we're still trying to figure things out. So it's not set in stone, but it's looking like you could definitely nullify a Jett without Jett.
All right. Well, I think that pretty much wraps all of our questions, right? Unless Josh, you got like another little hidden question or two up your sleeve?
No other little hidden questions. I'm just, I guess a cool way to finish off would be to talk about Reykjavik, honestly, because now that we've finished Masters 1, Reykjavik is the thing that the entire community is going to be thinking about, talking about, everything. It's all going to be based around the teams are going to be clashing around the world in this tournament. Yeah. That's what I feel like from a player, that has got to be like blinker vision focused on making it there, right?
Yeah. I mean, we want to go to Iceland, man. Definitely. Like this, we know that this Masters tournament too is, I think, more points than the last Masters. So I think it's like double, right? So the first place was 100. I don't know. Yeah, I think it's like double. I'm not too sure though. But yeah, we're definitely prepping to take this tournament. Even though we've been kind of falling short here and there, we have the confidence that we need to take this tournament. We just, once again, we have to refine these little things that are slacking. You know, these little retakes and post plants, these little comms here and there. Once we do that, I think we'll find much more consistency than we have now. Because it's already hard to stay consistent in this game with how the mechanics are. It seems like mechanics are just so overwhelming in this game that you cannot stay consistent through strategy. Because if you have someone like Baby Bay just dashing in and fucking ruining your day, like, what are you gonna do? You know, like, what's the answer to a Jett just coming in with knives and just killing 3 people? Like, what could you have done strategically better in that situation? There's not much answers you can give for that. You know, it's kind of just like he hit his shots. He has Bladestorm. You know, like, well, what could you do? So we're going to try to refine what we can do so that we can stay consistent and be able to make Iceland, because who doesn't want to go to Iceland?
Yeah,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, looking forward to it anyway, mummAy. Thank you for joining us as well. Thanks for taking time out of your schedule as well on this episode of BACKCHAT. Are we allowed to announce the next guest?
Yeah, I think so.
Am I?
I mean, we have to make sure that nothing crops up between now and then. But yeah, hopefully we'll.
Okay, so the plan. Yeah, all right. Well, the plan is Asuna will be the next guest for BACKCHAT then. So you got that to look forward to as well, coming up next Monday. But yeah, best of luck, mummAy, with the future. All the best with the Masters 2 and the climb to Iceland as well. Climb to Iceland, they make it sound like an expedition.
It's pretty serious.
Yeah. We'll see you guys on Monday as well for more Plat Chat Valorant content. See you then.